So, you ready to get started, Taylor?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Taylor. I build websites here at Pipeline. We build sites for many different kinds of clients, anywhere from small businesses to medium, large businesses, e-commerce, or media personalities. We build stuff for everybody. And our approach to building websites is we like to think of them as a digital storefront. So the website is always there, it's always online, even when you're not. So today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the principles that we adhere to whenever we build websites here at Pipeline.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, let's get into the questions. So we only have 15 minutes here. So first question is what is responsive design?
Responsive design. Well, responsive design is a fairly new concept, but it's been going on for a while. It can be defined as the approach that suggests that design and development should respond to the user's behavior and environment based on screen size, platform, and orientation.
Can you put that in layman's terms?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that basically means that your website can be viewed on any device and give the user the same experience. In the past, we've had mobile sites as well as a desktop site that was built. The problem with that is that you have to update both of the sites individually to have your content updated. So, responsive design adjusts the website for whatever device your user is viewing it on. So, the first question is, why does your website need to be responsive? Well, there's a few reasons. The first is the user experience. So if you look at this little example here, this is what your website would look like on a mobile phone without being responsive. So as you can see, the menu items are very tiny up top. It's difficult to read the text. You'd have to hold your phone up to your face to be able to read it.
I can't see it.
It's very difficult. It also messes with the image sizes and just isn't a very good experience overall. And over here, we have a little animation of what a responsive website looks like. So you have the same content as your desktop site, but as you scroll through, it just gives your users a much better experience on mobile, resizes everything to fit, and just adjusts very well for the device you're looking at.
Sweet.
A couple more reasons. 77% of people in America now have mobile phones. So there's a good chance, very good chance, that someone will visit your website on mobile eventually. So you need to make sure that you have them seeing your website how you want them to see it. Yeah. Another great reason is that Google prioritizes mobile sites over static sites. So if you have competition and a few of them have responsive sites but you don't, when someone searches for your industry, they have a better chance of showing up higher in the Google search rankings.
Wow.
Yeah, so that alone is one really, really good reason to make sure your website is responsive.
Definitely important.
Yeah. So let me just show you guys how responsive design works. So here's a little illustration of what your website might look like on a few different devices. Here we have desktop, where we have one row here with one column, then we have a row with two columns, then we have a row with three. And as you can see, as the screen size gets smaller, everything adjusts to fit. Up until we get to the point down here now, where you're on mobile, and it basically has one row with one column for each thing. But the content stays the same no matter what. So now your website based on a desktop here, you have the same information, but it looks just the same on mobile. You have the same content. It's great. I'm going to show you guys a little demonstration of how how responsive design works. So we have the Pipeline social media site here. So this is what it looks like on desktop. Scroll through a little bit. Here's a few rows, some columns.
Man, good looking website.
Yeah, I say so
Whoever
myself.
put that together.
Yeah, whoever did.
Amazing.
Say so myself.
Amazing.
So when you resize it, you can kind of tell what it looks like on different devices. So let's go down. This would be a tablet view. So you can see a few things adjust here. One, the text gets a little bit smaller, so it's easier to read and doesn't take up as much screen space. And also the menu changes up here. So now you have this nice interactive drop-down menu instead, so it doesn't take up a whole lot of the screen. And let's see, let's make it a little bit smaller to where we're on mobile now. So this is what it would look like on a cell phone. And as you scroll down, you can see how everything kind of centers out. It provides a much better experience overall. Text gets smaller. You still have all your calls to action in here. It's just a much better mobile experience altogether.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good deal. Well, Taylor, how do I tell whether my website is mobile friendly? I mean, you just did that kind of share thing. Is there any other tools out there that I can use to test it out?
Yes, there is. One that you can do is there is a tool called Responsinator. There's plenty of online tools like here.
Responsinator.
Responsinator, yes. And just to let you guys know, after the presentation is over, I'm going to post some of the resources that we used for this presentation. So you'll have all these links and you'll have everything that you can test out your own sites on later. So there's tools like this that show you kind of what your website looks like on a number of different platforms. This is one way to do it. Another way is through Google. So they have a mobile-friendly test here. It's this link right here. So you just put in your URL and test it out, and it tells you, according to Google, if it's mobile-friendly or not.
And that's important according to Google.
It's super important.
Yep.
And, of course, you can always just visit your website on a mobile phone. That's always the best way to do it. Just look at the experience and just try to look at it through your customer's eyes and see how well they'd be able to utilize your services based on the way your website is laid out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great information. Well, we have another question here, Taylor.
Okay.
What is a domain name, and then what is web hosting, or how do we do web hosting? So what is a domain name, and how do we do web hosting?
All right. Well, a domain name is the URL that people type into their browser to visit your website. It is usually composed of a series of letters and numbers, followed by a dot, and then the domain extension. The most popular one is .com. There's also .net, .info. There's tons of options out there. And in the resources, I have a list. I have a link to a list of all the different domain extensions that you can have.
Cool.
You can purchase your domain name online through a registrar. GoDaddy is the most popular one, but there's a number of them out there. It costs roughly $10 to $15 a year to purchase, depending on what your domain name is. But you do need to make sure to renew that domain name every year, because it is possible if you don't renew it, then it could just be released out to the internet for anybody else to buy. So you want to make sure that you have a good domain name, and like I said, they're not too expensive. So if you're thinking about starting a new business, even thinking about starting something, if you go ahead and find the domain name and it's available, I suggest to go ahead and purchase it.
Yeah.
While you can.
I hate to have let it go and somebody else pick it up.
Yeah.
So then so now that we have a domain name, we bought it from GoDaddy, how do we then get our site hosted?
Hosting. Well, your host is where the files for your website actually live. So you purchase hosting space from hosting providers. GoDaddy offers it. There's a number of them online. And you rent out server space that they have available, and you can choose how much space you want, how much resources you want, based on how much traffic you believe your website will have.
Right.
So one cool thing about hosting and servers, well, it's cool to me anyways, every website you visit has an IP address associated with a server. So you guys have probably seen an IP address before. It's a series, it's 4 numbers separated by dots. And one crazy thing about them is that whenever you visit a domain name, you're actually visiting an IP address that is masked by the domain name. So if you visit CNN.com, you're actually visiting 10.150.something.something. So every server has its own IP address. So, say all that to say, if you own your domain name, it is possible through settings on your domain service on your registrar to point that domain name towards any web hosting server. Yeah.
There you go.
So you want to make sure that you have access to your domain name. So if you decide to go with a different web company or a different hosting provider in the future, you'll be able to do that.
Right. All right. Well, great.
Yeah.
Well, we have one more question here. We had a question that came over, but we'll see what we can get to.
Oh, sorry. That reminds me. So how to test if you own your domain name.
Yeah.
What you'll...
That was a question I had was how do you tell if you own it?
How do you tell if you own it? Okay, cool. So there's a tool online. Let me switch back to Chrome here. All right, it's called a Whois search here. So you'll go to this link over here, ie.godaddy.com/whois. Yet again, all this will be available afterwards. You can enter that domain name in here, and you can see who owns it. So you look at the results here. You can see the registrar is this cscprotectbrands.com. And if you want to look down and try to find some of the information about the person that actually owns it, you can see their phone number, and you can even email them if you're interested in their domain name.
Is that Ted Turner's email address?
I don't think it's Ted Turner's email. I don't think
TM Group.
Yeah, he's too busy hanging
Turner.
out in Montana with a bunch of buffalo and whatnot
Buffalo.
to be checking email. Yeah. So I probably won't get him exactly. So I say that to say, if you don't know if you own your domain name, so if you have had your business for a long time, there's a chance you bought your domain name a long time ago. You may not have that information handy though. So like I said earlier, you want to make sure that you have that information in case you want to change who hosts your website. So what you'll do, you'll go to that Whois search, and you can look and see at that email and phone number, see if that's somebody you recognize. If it is, you may want to ask them. Maybe it's your IT person, maybe it's a person who owned your business previously. You can always just ask them if they have the information for your registrar. If not, then you can look at the email address, and you can usually use that email address to reset your password.
Very good.
So it is very important to get a grasp on your domain name, even if you're not planning on getting a new website.
Just having that information is important.
Yeah, just having the information. We've run into situations with some of our websites where we haven't had it, and we've had to go through a lot of different channels to make it happen. So it's better to be prepared before it's too late.
Yeah, definitely. Well, very good. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, we are about out of time here. 15 minutes is up, and we do have a question. We'll send you an email on the question here that was asked, and we can cover that. That's has to do with some SEO stuff, so we'll work on that later. But we appreciate that question coming in. But I just want to thank you, Taylor, for taking the 15 minutes today.
Welcome.
And go over just some basic stuff on web, and I think the most important thing is the responsiveness and making sure you have everybody's on their mobile phone, so that's an important thing, and making sure everybody can see your store on mobile 24/7. So that's important. But anyway, thank you, Taylor, and we just thank you for joining us on Pipeline Live, and hope you can join us again. If you have any questions, please again hit us up here on the chat here. And then if you need any more information about us, obviously we've talked about pipelinesocialmedia.com. You've seen our website 15 times today, so you can check that out, and there's a blog resource there too. So thanks for joining. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.